Alright, so in the final part we're actually going to animate this thing. And you can see that the one rendering I did with all of the materials applied took quite a while. And to be honest, I don't have enough time to get that kind of quality out for the rendering. I know in an animation I'm looking at anywhere between 24 and 30 frames per second. So if I was going to render that out, it would just take hours and hours and hours to make up a very short clip. So I'm going to pull up my material editor by hitting M. Let's see, there we go. And I'm going to create a new material. I'm going to right click, go to Material, Vray Material, and let's see if I can remember where it is. It might actually be, here we go. Yeah, it's actually a standard material, which is called Ink and Paint. And if I double click these properties, I have kind of the color it's painted and its kind of line weight. So if I come in, I'm going to set my color to be kind of a grayish tone, not purple. Let's see. Take out all the saturation. There we go. And just set it as kind of a neutral gray color. My outline is going to be black. So if I preview this by right-clicking and say Open Preview, it's hard to see, but it would have a ring around the outside. And I don't want to apply that to everything, but I want to apply it to almost everything, not the background and not the glass. So to do that, I'm going to do this. I'm first going to take and select my lights and my backdrop there. I'm going to hit Control and drag to select more objects, and then I can just right click and say Hide Selection. And then zooming in, I know that this is my glass, and I want to hide that. So I'm going to hide that selection. All I'm left with are kind of the metal pieces. So by hitting M again, I bring up my material editor. I'm going to right click and apply this to my selection. And then again, let's just jump into solidrocks and preview this. So I'm just going to get a little preview here, and I'm trying to see if I have, I think I'm going to need my background. So I'm going to right click in my window and say unhide all. My lights come back, which is good. And I can mini preview. Let's see if I can see any indication of the actual lines. I think it's there. I'm going to give it a quick render. I'm going to reduce my size just to do it really fast. So 360, and then I'm going to reduce this down, not medium settings, but low. I'm going to do a quick rendering just to see that this ink and paint material is working. And I can already tell. You can see it kind of has that cartoony look to it, which maybe would be better if the gray material was a little more white. But you can also see that the rendering speed is quite a bit faster. And we've already done all the pre-passes. This should actually be the rendering. I won't let it go all the way. That doesn't really matter. But I just want to make sure it is working. There you go. And just compared to what we had before, this is way, way, way faster. So I don't want it that dark, so I'm going to cancel this, bring up my materials, my ink and paint, and I'm going to change my fill color to be much brighter. We can also add a highlight to it, which I think could be nice. And if I open my preview now, it has a little bit of a sheen to it, and I can control how much that is by dropping this down. So let's see if we're watching the preview, maybe we can see it change. If I drop it to 10%, it doesn't seem to do too much there. Well, we're going to give it a shot. And the next thing, my ink, my minimum width on my ink, I'm going to set to 1, which will allow it to be thinner. And I'm going to set variable width. So I think what that will do is lines that are kind of floating in space would be bold, kind of the silhouette lines, and there will be finer lines as well. Let's see if there's anything else I need to do. No, we'll leave that like that. So we have the ink and paint applied. We have the background turned off. We have the cameras and lights turned off. We're only really interested in the clock. And you can remember I rotated it so that it's no longer kind of orthogonal on the X, Y, and Z. And that makes it a little more difficult to work with, mainly because I'm going to be trying to move these things around in space. And if I click this guy, you can see it's not moving this way. I want it to come back in space, but instead it's kind of going in the X and the Y. It would be nicer if I could align those axes on that rotation. So I'm going to undo that. And to do that, I have to come over into my hierarchy. And if I click this middle tab, hierarchy, I can edit my working pivot, which is kind of the generic coordinates. You can see in my top plan, it's X, Y, and Z. What I'm going to do is just rotate that so that the X is much closer in line with the axis of the clock. Now, I'm not going to get it exact, and that's fine. Right now we're just working through basic principles. We can come back with later tutorials and get a little more specific, but I wanted to do a kind of big overview on a workflow in 3D Studio Max. So just by doing that, I rotate it around, and now I can say use working pivot. And when I come and click select object and click this ring and tell it to move, I'm going to be using that pivot. So now when I move on the X, it's going to move perfectly back in space. It looks like the Y alignments or the Z alignment's a little messed up. It's probably the Y. Let's take a look at that. I can zoom in here. Yeah, it's actually the Z. So then I would just have to move that up in space to get that nestled in. And I can even... Alright, so I'll be able to work with it. It's not the best, it's not the cleanest option. I should have rotated the backdrop and the camera and not the clock. But we're going to work with this anyway. So I'm using my working pivots. What I want to do is to create an animation. So down here I have my time configurer. And I can just click that and set up that I want to go from 0 to 100 frames. So total will be 101 frames. And I have that down here, and my slider shows nothing's happening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click everything and turn on auto key. What this means is that when I move something, it sets a new position, a new rotation, and a new scale. So we're going to start off as the model is. And you can see if I move forward here, I'm going to click key. So I have auto key turned on. I didn't move anything, so I didn't get a key. And now you can see I have this kind of blue, green, and red icon showing that these objects have a keyframe at frame 0. I'm going to move to frame 15, and then I'm going to see if I can just pull in this top, the bell, and the handle. Let's see if I can grab them all at once. I'm going to take all of those guys, and at frame 15 I just want those to come in, come down, south, and really I'd want the bells to pull in on kind of X, or on the Y-axis. So let's see if I take these guys and move them on the Y, and this one and those ones, and move them on the Y. That's not really symmetrical. It's kind of hard to do. And then I'm going to come back up and take the handle and the two tabs and move them further down on the Z. So now let's see if I move backwards. There you go. We actually have that animated because I've set a keyframe for those objects at 0 and a keyframe at 15. So we'll let that be the first move, and then let's take everything else and we'll key it again here. So now the only thing that should move is those two, and I want to move to keyframe 30. Now I want to move the glass and the kind of the bezel backwards. You could imagine if I didn't set a key by clicking the key at 15, then it would create motion between 0 and 30 for the glass and the bezel. I don't want that to do that. I want that to happen from 15 to 30. And actually I'm going to just jump all the way out to 60, and I'm going to try to combine everything and have it all collapse between frames 15 and 60. So to do that, I have to go one piece at a time. So this guy is going to pull in. You know, it'd be really good to be in plan view here. So we're going to pull that in. We have the washers. We'll pull all that stuff in, and we'll just take the back piece and we'll pull that in. Great. Then we have all the springs, and it's nice I can view it here in my perspective. So pull those back into the clock, and then I'll grab all my gears, and oops, I misclicked them. pull them deeper into the clock. And then all this stuff, and pull that back. I think some of these gears will be sticking out. Alright, so to grab them, I'm going to do my same thing. Let's see. This stuff here. Pull those in. I have to zoom in really close. And holding control, I'm just trying to get, yep, got just a little bit of it. Pull them back. The glass is hidden, but I knew it was floating there. So the glass pulls back, and the bezel pulls all the way back. Then remember the bezel was a little bit off, so I'm going to pull it up on the Z. I don't know if I did something along the way that got it screwed up. But hopefully then everything's collapsed in. We got the feet floating out there. But that's fine, we'll leave them. So I'm going to set, clicking everything, I'm going to set my key. Let's see. There we go. And it pulls apart. So my animation's actually working in backwards. And you can see in my camera view here, everything stays in frame, which is really important. And then from here, maybe we have the feet already set, but let's take them both, and at frame 75 we're going to key them up, and we'll move them up, and this guy is going to move on the Y. Let's see, this guy is going to move on the Y. So I can key that guy. Oh, I'm way off. But that's fine, whatever. Key it. And now the feet move in, the clock explodes. There we go. There's all the animation. So here, I'm going to come back into the view. If I wanted to, I could animate the camera also and have the camera rotate around. Typically, I don't like to see both the camera moving and the object moving, but I'm going to give it a shot anyway. So I'm going to unhide all, so we get the background in there. I'm going to zoom out in plan view and click the camera, which is right there. I'm going to set its keyframe here. And then at the end, we will rotate the camera. The camera's using the working plane too. Let's see, it's being weird. Let's see. Maybe we can just do it here. Here are my camera controls, and this one here is on pan camera. I want to go up to orbit, clicking and holding. So I can move there, slide, zoom in, set my key. Let's see if it works. Yeah, the camera slides too. So I've got everything moving at once. Because I've got ink and paint applied, it's going to render a lot faster. But one thing we want to do is to use solidrocks to its fullest potential. So I'm going to open solidrocks again. And one of the new updates was this animation and fly-through tab. So I'm just going to make sure I have a good setting here. I'm going to do a quick mini preview. And it looks the same. I'll do auto white balance or auto exposure and see if the scene needs to be brightened. I think it does. It's pretty gray. It's actually making it a little darker, which I don't want. Let's do a white balance. This was set for a white balance with all the bronze and silver materials. That looks nicer to me. And then we're going to go into this tab, the animation and fly-through wizard. So I can set if I want an interior exterior animation. This is an interior. How fast is the camera moving? Is it slow? Is it walk? Or is it run? I'm going to go slow. What that means is it's going to check how often does it need to look at the kind of global lighting situation. And because our lighting's not changing, we don't need it to check often. What then you're going to have to do is to store file types. So just like before, our animation ran and it did an irridance map and it did a light cache. We're going to have them do light cache once and an irridance map maybe 4 or 5 times, and then use those again and again and again for the rest of the rendering. So I'm going to have to tell it where it can save this stuff. So I'm going to go into my new folder, and this will be animation 1, and save the light cache, animation 1. And you also have to tell it where to save the files for the movie. So again, let's just jump back, new folder, and we'll call this animation.avi. You can just type in the file type and it's smart enough to know and ask you how you want to encode it. I'm just going to leave it at the default. So let's see. My only worry is I've got 900 for the size. I'm going to close this a second. I'm just going to drop this down to 480. And because it's locked, it'll automatically update the width. Come back, making it smaller so that hopefully it'll render faster. So here I could go through and just calculate the light cache and then the airdens map and then do the rendering, or my favorite button here at the bottom, do the whole thing. So this is going to run for probably quite some time, but I'll fast forward through it and show you what we get on the other side. Alright, so there the animation's finished. It's kind of a little glitchy. I actually stopped it in the middle, reduced the file size, and messed with some of the ink and paint settings because they weren't working well. You can see it's still kind of messed. I don't have the glass in the right spot, and we got a double surface that pops up back there. But that's basically the general principles. We brought it in from Rhino. We grouped everything by prefix name, applied Vray materials to them, set up a backdrop and camera with lights, did a quick test render using solidrocks, which you can find the link in the description below, and then keyframed everything. So this is just the basic workflow. You can imagine you can go a lot more complex. We can scale and change transparencies and things. You could move the camera around or aggregate this. You could take it in 100 different directions, but this is just kind of the basics. So if you have any questions, leave comments below or send me a message at c.k.mcadams@gmail.com. Thanks.